What is the structure of that linear programming problem? And in shortcut we call that as LPP most popularly. And when we look at that problem, we will see in the first place objective function. Objective function is indicated by Z or Z. So that objective function may be maximization or minimization. What it indicates is, depending upon the context or situation, where there may be a maximization. That means if it comes to sales, or when it comes to output, or when it comes to revenues. So these kind of situations require the maximization of that. So then we will write maximize Z or maximize Z is equal to some equation. And then we have constraints. So actually in linear programming problem, what we try to do is, as what we have done in earlier case, we have formulated the problem. That problem has to be solved. So the formulation of the problem was based upon some real life situation, and we are trying to put that in some equations. So when we see these equations, we see there is an objective function and there are also some constraints. What constraints indicate is, that is a limitation. In any organization context, resources are limited. For example, the availability of raw material, that may be available in certain number of kgs or quintals or tons. That is one constraint. It is not unlimited material that is available. Or there may be number of machine hours. That is also a constraint, or that can be a constraint. And similarly, the number of man hours based upon the number of workers or workforce, and 8 hours per day, or maybe if they work for 16 hours a day, or even if they work 3 shifts, 24 hours per day. Likewise, we will have number of workers into number of working hours will give us man hours. That may be. So when an organization has to produce certain kind of products, they will require inputs in the form of raw materials, in the form of machine hours, or in the form of man hours, or there may be several kinds of other things that might be resulting in some constraints. Constraint is nothing but a limitation on usage of certain resource or availability of certain resource. Similarly, we have non-negativity restrictions. What non-negativity restrictions indicates is, so there are certain variables which will never assume negative values. For example, when we ask about the production can be at the most it can be, or at the least it can be 0, or it can be a positive number. Production can never be a negative number. That is the reason we call them as non-negativity restriction. That means certain variables where they cannot take negative values. Either they should be 0 or only positive values. Such kind of restriction which we mentioned is known as non-negativity restriction.